Good morning, everyone. My name is Mike Stedman. I'm here today to talk to you about Ironbound USA. Our agenda for today, we're going to be going through the team introduction, problem, solution, opportunity, landscape, the go-to market, financials, and eventually your questions. Before we get started, I want to go ahead and introduce my team. So myself, I'm the president of Ironbound USA.
Pat.
Nicole.
Chad.
Corey.
And John.
January of this year, I got a phone call from my partner, my business partner, Gary Bloor, and he told me as he was driving home from our gym that there was a body in the street next to the High Court housing projects in Newark. When I got home that night, I checked the news and found out that that body was a 16-year-old kid named Kevin Barber, who was gunned down in broad daylight. 3 others were shot in the attack, including a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 19-year-old. Unfortunately, in the environment that we live in Newark, this is a common occurrence. Kids are dying every day in the street, and we as a society haven't figured out what to do about it. If you take out Newark and you insert Chicago, Baltimore, Detroit, you're going to find the same thing. Areas where the area where these are happening, crime, poverty, drugs are the common trends. This is where we come into play. Ironbound USA is a 501c3 organization based out of Newark. Our mission is to fund boxing and personal branding education programs in disadvantaged urban communities. The purpose of these programs is to build positive relationships with at-risk youth in these communities and then leverage those relationships to force social change. The kid you see in the photo above is my team captain, Israel Lemma. He's 18 years old, just graduated high school, and he's headed to Campbell University. He was a member of Ironbound this year when we launched the gym in February, and he has great success with us.
We don't take notes on this transition.
Okay.
Hi, so I'm here to speak to you about the problem. This is not new to any of us. In these communities that we're dealing with in Newark, New Jersey in particular, the issues start with lack of education, poverty, crime, and drugs. When the kids go to school, what they find is that they're not represented in terms of the leadership at school. So what we have, as you can see in the graph, in terms of teachers, they are a large proportion of white non-Hispanic teachers trying to address a very large proportion of minority students. So the kids go to school and they don't see people that look like them. They have problems staying in school. The education gap is pretty wide. So what we want to do is to be able to address that. Essentially what the problem is that we're not engaging the kids. So we need to find something that grabs their attention as well as engages them so that they can...
Doing great. Fine.
Okay, so we've talked about the schools. Now let's talk about the parents. One of the issues with the parents, sometimes they are disengaged because they cannot be engaged. They're working 2 to 3 jobs, trying to support their families. Another issue is that they may not have the ability to assist their kids. There are some organizations that are working in this space, but they are not addressing the key problems. For example, the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Clubs. These provide a great after-school place for the kids, a safe place where they can do activities and some summer programs. The problem is they're not working with the kids individually in terms of making them better citizens, helping them with their brand, as well as preparing them to be productive citizens. So what the kids are missing and the gap that we propose to fill is to give them an engaging subject so that they can, so that we can catch their attention, pair them with mentors who are successful, who look like them, and who can engage them and guide them on to a successful life.
Okay, so what makes Ironbound different? We already talked about introduced ourselves as a nonprofit. We're operating in the urban space. What separates us from all the other existing nonprofits out there is our innovation. What we're attempting to do is bring innovation to how we address human issues, right? When we talk about human capital, when we talk about innovation, a lot of times we apply it to technology, we apply it to business. But what happens when you apply innovation to human capital? Particularly in the urban environment, we've already talked about kids are dying in the streets. The first way we do is we utilize boxing. Boxing serves as our initial form of engagement to build positive relationships with those kids. If you go into a school in Newark, if you go into a school in Detroit, it doesn't matter your background, it doesn't matter how positive you may think you are. A kid is not going to build a relationship with you unless he has a forum to see you and engage with you on a consistent basis. And the best way we find out to be able to do that is boxing. It's also very edgy for the youth as they enjoy it, they understand it, and they can relate to it. The next thing we do is our education program is based on personal branding. Our philosophy on personal branding is that everyone views themselves as their own brand. This becomes particularly important as you move into the social media space. And then lastly, it's the scope of support we're trying to bring to the city of Newark. Most inner city boxing gyms are not going to come out to Palo Alto in an attempt to raise support to take back to that environment. So we're really bringing a lot of innovation to our methods. Now, speaking of boxing, what you see here is the Ironbound Boxing Academy. It's our first boxing gym, which we launched in February. We were able to do so by raising an initial startup of about $20,000. This included all the equipment, bags, training equipment, and just overall paint, everything we had to do to get the gym set up. Now next, I talked about the personal branding. We have relationships with 2 schools in the city of Newark, St. Benedict's Preparatory School, where I work, as well as Newark Tech. We're able to go into those schools and teach our personal branding education program focused on understanding social media and the do's and don'ts for teenagers.
Thanks, man. Hello, good afternoon. I hope you guys are excited about this as I am. So we're actually going to transition now into looking at how are we going to accomplish what we're going to do. So I'm prefacing our go-to-market strategy with just a brief analysis of our market and taking a look at some competitive advantage in the landscape that we're operating in. So namely, let's take a look at where we're at and the most important factors I just want to highlight, generally speaking. And that's going to be geography, where we're physically located. It feeds into the following 3, which is overlap and saturation of the market, what other groups are doing, what we're doing, if any, how many of them are there, which leads to our final component, which is money. How much do I need to compete with other groups that are like me or possibly like us doing our similar mission? So this graph you can see before you is from the Center for Nonprofits. They're a New Jersey-based group that looks at all of the nonprofits in New Jersey. And quite simply, you can see this is projections for 2017. The demand for their core services is increasing 76%. No significant change considering the year before they had growth as well. So that was 2015 to 2016. There is considerable growth for demand in our service sector. So that's something worth noting. Yet at the same time, this is something that's actually really good for us and hopeful to see in the entire industry. There's an 81% combination of increase in static funding, and actually the largest component of that is increase. So while there's more demand, we're also seeing a rise in the availability of funding for all these different nonprofit groups located in Newark. So we're really hopeful about that market landscape and being able to get a piece of the pie and with greater availability. That's our target. That is our target market right there. 2,519 at-risk youth, 13 to 18 years old in Newark, New Jersey. So you can do the math and the penetration rate that we need to get to our optimal efficiency, which That target right now is about 40 kids to fill the gym and to work within the schools in the program. Is something that we certainly think we can achieve considering the two late factors you saw before. And to go even more into our niche markets, so that was our market segment, that's who we want to address. This is going to be our sweet spot, if you will, after school programs. There's a lot of different nonprofits that want to serve sports programs purely, so it's your after school soccer league. Others want to be, the weekend. Others just want to have free play or pure educational opportunities. And we really want to have, as Mike and the team has already said, the ability to teach, to form relationships with kids in an after-school setting that's safe, that's productive, and that leads to further outcomes down the line. And so our entry point and after-school programming from the unique offering we have is how we believe we can do that. And delving further into the competition landscape, we're actually going to change that. There's a very low barrier to entry. We already have a presence, as some of my colleagues are going to talk about and have mentioned as well. Legally speaking, financially speaking, and we'll delve into the partnerships that allow us to do that and the funding streams as well. It's a stagnant market. As Nicole was mentioning about the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club, I mean, these are national programs with some success, but they are much more broadly based in how they serve children. And we are really going to focus in as a young, scrappy startup, if you will, to reiterate, what that's going to look like moving forward. Again, the non-traditional programming that we're offering is where we meet the kids at their level. It's something that kids get excited about, that they're cool to say to their friends I want to go to, that hit the kids that need it the most, who may not always show up to school on time. Right? The ones who may not always do well in class, the ones who need that extra help that teachers can't seem to reach. So that non-traditional programming route to getting them involved is unique in our competitive landscape. I'm not going to talk too much about the private-public partnerships. My colleague Chad's going to delve into that. But co-opetition, we're a nonprofit. All right, we're competing for dollars with these people, but at the same time, we want to work with them on what they do better than what we do. And particularly, I'll tell you about the Ironbound Community Development Agency. The person who used to be the executive director just retired. He used to be a mayor of Brookhaven and worked with Cory Booker, who I'm sure you know, Senator Cory Booker right now. And they have a summer program that trains kids and graduates 150 each year and gets them internships at all kinds of different places. So there are many community partners for us to work with that do certain aspects that we want to develop the beginnings of, like job skills, life coaching, personal branding, that we're going to partner with throughout our life cycle to get those kids to where they need to be. And Chad's going to tell you a little more about that.
So why are we here today? We're here to talk about money. We need money to make this program get off the ground. We've started it with $20,000. Mike bootstrapped it in Newark. As a team, we've come up with strategies to bring this full force, and we actually want to get this running and ultimately expand to other markets. How we're going to do that? So right now, Mike is a one-man show at the boxing arena, and he gets there from 4 to 8 every day because he is he works at the school. He's there for the kids at nighttime. So Mike has between 4 and 8 every day to have the boxing gym open. That's not good when he comes to a place like Stanford for a month because nobody's covering down on him. So what we need is we need some employees. We need one full-time employee that we can have there and run the day-to-day operations so Mike can be out fundraising and doing other things. So we've got a full-time employee up there. We'd like to get 4 part-time employees. We'd also like to grow that into a volunteer section of mentors of kids that graduate the program and then come back and help out for little or no money. With that being said, Mike right now is taking kids back and forth, or they're taking public transportation. That doesn't lend well for predictability for the kids. So we'd like to get a 15-passenger van so we can take the kids from school to the boxing arena and then back home or drop them off at the dormitory where Mike currently is working. With the van, though, we do have associated fees with that, such as gas, upkeep, maintenance, gym equipment. We're a boxing gym. Unfortunately, we have a lot of wear and tear on that equipment, so we're going to need about a $10,000 infusion on an annual basis in order to keep up with the equipment that wears out as well as new equipment as we come about. We're also going to need IT and educational support. The kids aren't going to box for 4 hours, so we'd like them to do their homework while they're at the gym as well. So we're going to have some computers and different other equipment and books for them to do while they're at the boxing arena. We've got insurance, food, marketing, rent, utilities. Right now, we have the luxury. Mike partnered with the city of Newark, and we are currently in a community rec room that Mike was able to go in and redo, but we don't pay any rent. We also don't pay any utilities. We have to cover insurance for the kids, for the community center, as well as the U.S. Boxing Association provides insurance for those kids for a minimal cost, which we have in there. But what we need to do is, this is our annual cost. You can see right there, it's about $250,000 for the first year. That's going to go down a little in year 2 because we've already bought the van. It'll go down by about $20,000 and it'll stay that way for year 3. But right now what we're asking for 3 years worth of money, just under $750,000. And that $750,000 will get us through 3 years. And what we plan to do with that is get into, we want to be able to grow this program to be able to expand into other cities like Mike talked about.
Yeah, so a big part of this strategy is our strategic partnerships that we're going to have with the communities. One of those partnerships is with the city of Newark. We were able to get rent-free space. We were able to get an armed guard at the entrance to be a safe environment for these kids to come in. And this was just huge as we were bootstrapping this with limited funds. Another strategic partnership that we made is with St. Benedict's Prep. This school in the city, Mike works there as a residence director, and he interfaces with these kids every day. This serves as an initial contact point with the kids. He's there embedded with them every day, giving them face-to-face contact, building trust, and bringing awareness to Ironbound to get that first core group of users to us. So these partnerships are very strategic. Another partnership that we're looking at to do in the future is with local law enforcement officers. We're going to ping officers to be volunteer coaches, volunteer teachers, as we scale the gym to larger capacity. So once we have these partnerships in place, we staff and we equip the gym. Right now in Newark, we have a fully functional gym with minimal equipment. As Corey said before, Mike's the only employee. We're looking at expanding that. Once we have the partnerships in place, once we have the staffing and equipment, and we have that core group of kids that the schools have fed us, the next step is social media. We engage the kids on social media. I asked Mike the other day how he contacts these kids when they're not right in front of them, and he says Instagram. That's their only form of communication. So these kids are on there, and this is going to be a way to expand our reach beyond those partnership schools and get in contact with a friend of a friend of a friend as we get the capacity of the gym up to speed.
So what do we need from you? The reason we're speaking to you today is because in order to make our program in Newark sustainable, we need to raise $750,000. That will allow us 3 years to operate the program in Newark while simultaneously working to expand our program to 10 other cities across the United States. Some of the cities I've already mentioned throughout this talk: Detroit, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Chicago, all that suffer from the similar things we're facing in the city of Newark. We need your help in being able to scale this program to take it to the next level. And we also want to build long-term public and private partnerships. So this fundraising campaign that we're going on, we're hoping that it's going to make, we're hoping that it's going to build strong relationships so that ultimately it's not just you sponsoring our boxing program and our education program, but also creating a pathway for kids from Newark to potentially come out to Silicon Valley and go work at places like Google and intern, possibly come to Stanford, and just open up the scope of our ability to influence them.
It's like being in a different world inside the room. Hands up. Go ahead. Very fast. The robberies, the guns, the violence. You can't live in this environment or come to school in this environment and not be exposed to the reality of it. Who's going to be there first?
We expect kids, particularly in inner cities, to go out and be ready for a job, and they're not.
How are you supposed to get better if you're not working on it?
I'm trying.
A lot of their parents don't have cars. They don't have phones. They don't have all these basic things.
I trust him because I know that he wants what's best for me as an athlete and as a person.
It's part of teaching these guys you can either quit or you can push through.
Are there any questions?
Hey. Was one of the questions in terms of the video, do you show the 3 minute or the 1 minute?
Yes.
I think the 1 minute works. I think 3 minute may be more of an investment. I haven't seen it, obviously. Maybe more of an investment of your time than you want to invest, you want to give. Right now, you're at 20 minutes, which is a good range to be in. There is some space to add stuff that Yossi may have given you, and I've got some comments as well. But I thought the 1 minute video worked fine. What needs to happen for it to be effective?
It's a transition.
You've got to transition into it just like you would transition into another speaker. You've got to cause the listening of it, and you have to watch the video with us. Everybody on your team has to watch the video so that you cause all of us to do the same thing. But it's compelling, and it also gives, it brings the voice of the customer, of the client being served into the room, which is hard to do in the Ignite presentations, and it does that nicely. So, okay, slides, are they in Google shared PowerPoint, or are they in PowerPoint? Or something else?
Something else.
What are they in?
Slide bean.
Okay. Does it have slide sorter capability?
It does.
Can you set it up in that? Or can somebody set it up in that? Because with the last team, I just talked about a couple of slides, but we didn't really do a deep dive on slides. Is there a way to see, like three across?
Beyond this. There may be, but we're not sure.
Okay, okay. So let me, can you? You can't in PowerPoint, but.
You grab and drag now? Like window? I'm going to go with no.
Okay, okay.
Don't break right now.
All right, let me, yeah, this'll.
That's what we were just trying.
It doesn't, actually. Okay, let me do this. Let me drive a little bit and just give some thoughts on slides. And then I want to come back and I want to work on the opening. Because with the other team, we worked on transitions, we worked on the closing, right? So I want to come back and work on the opening with you. In many cases, your slides worked for me, particularly the places where there were visuals, where there was evocative visuals. I remember we had that slide up there. There's the document, there's the teleprompter, and there's the presentation. When you were in that presentation mode, they were pretty strong in that regard. And so, these visual images worked effectively in that regard for me. Where it became less effective is we ended up having multiple formats of slides. Okay, so there was a bit of Frankendeck going on. For example, here.
We're deleting that one.
Okay, that's why you didn't speak to it at all. Okay.
And that one's going to go before the Python.
Here, see how. Wow, what does.
Go up to play.
I have to go to play? Okay, so this was your general look and feel, was the blue line across the top and across the bottom. And so we had that, but we skipped it in some places. So this one had no header on it and no sense of story. Many times your headers were not headers, they were just categories. So what about, what is the story here? Who delivers this one?
That's my
Yeah.
slide.
So what's the story there, Nicole? What is it you want us to walk away with?
So basically when you go, you're a student, you go into a school, you're about half the population of the school, but you don't see a lot of teachers who look like you.
Great. So that in a shorter, more concise form needs to be your headline. Okay? Minorities don't see, I can't come up with it quickly enough. Yeah. Minority students don't see minority teachers.
Disparity between students.
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. But something, if you can get an active verb in there, that would be helpful. So it looked like we kind of were going from this look and feel to this look and feel to this look and feel. It was a little jarring how many different places we had that. Then there was, so on all of these slides, again, it's a category, it's not a header. It doesn't tell me the story, it doesn't preview the story for me. Now, on these, why, every time I saw this 3-line look at something, let me get another one. Why are these, let me move you here a little bit. Why are these never lined up? Is that part of the design of it? You know what I'm talking about? These blue lines are never
Editing.
straight across.
Mostly just editing.
They could be. Okay. Because I was like, why are these not lined? And then I saw another one where it was lower and that sort of stuff. You want to have somebody go back through in that final look and just make sure that they're clear. Here, this pixelated, or maybe those are Legos, I'm not sure. But the distinction of that image was so distracting to the other two images that were fairly sharp. And then I saw the same thing on here, where you've got 2 big numbers and then a photo. That distinction of not being in the same genre, what you don't want to have happen when people are looking at your slides, you don't want them to start thinking about something other than what you're talking about. Just like when you see a typo in a cover letter. When I see the typo, I start thinking, well, did they proofread? Or maybe, is English their second language? Maybe that's actually how they spell that word in Great Britain and we spell it different. Like all of a sudden I've gone down this whole rabbit hole rather than looking at the content that you're talking about. And so that began happening to me with some of these experiences.
Would the logo be too jarring there? If you go to the next slide, the 3-line.
It would be less jarring, which I picked up the logo was on your chest and on your belt. I was like, oh, okay. At first I thought it was Tommy Hilfiger. I thought, oh, wait a minute, no. But I'm not sure. I'd have to see an execution, but it was hard to see. And then these slides, I'm assuming you'll be doing some more.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's all you need to say. Where here, so in answering your question, here that distinction is not as hard for me as it was on the other one where the color photo showed up.
Of course.
Okay. I am a little like, why does one get sub bullet points and the other two don't? Is it necessary? Like those are the kinds of things I would think through in terms of slides. Because it's Mike, right? Because Mike, your program is so fully developed and operational, like that is awesome, that is great. We've got to be sure that as an audience and as investors or advisors, that we see that there's something there's value we can add. And so I don't want you to hide anything that's there, but you want to look at, as you create the slides, as you create your parts of the story, you want to look at ways in which we can see ourselves inside of it. Now, the place I could see that going, and I'm not sure this is the call to action that you're going for, is expansion to other cities, expansion to other locations. So if that then is the direction, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I should introduce them to my friend of mine in Detroit, or I had that former student who went to LA. Like, I could begin to think of pathways. And so we've got a really good model that's working perfectly here, we want to expand, then I start listening in a different way.
But so like closing with like a picture of like Detroit or something like that, some other cities.
So
if that's where your call to action is going. Nicole?
So we're not sustainable in New Orleans yet. So really the first call to action is getting that stabilized and fully funded and then moving on.
Right, and as long as you remember he hit on it, right? Do you remember how he did the math and then he said we need to get to 750? Is that enough? Because I mean that is our first goal.
Yeah,
but it's enough for him to say it and then say that's.
I think it's enough for him to say it, but then you need to reinforce that in the call to action.
Right. So 750 initial funding for that, and then does runway get rid of 3-year operations, but program experience, because they're already really the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would tighten it up in that regard. And let us move back to the opening, and let's talk through. Oh, great! We're in great shape on time. Let's talk through the way in which you opened. It did. Talk to me about your theory of opening and your delivery on opening. No. So what you did, is that what you planned to do? What do you want to do?
I think, well, what happened with us is we had a meeting with our mentor this morning.
Yeah.
So we were with him for like 2 hours, and then we working on the side, and then we came in, we had a mentor with Joseph.
What we want to do is we want to tell a story to grab the audience initially from the beginning. So where we're at conflicted-wise, do we introduce the team? Do we kind of say, hey, this is what we want, this is who we are, story, or do we just right off the bat hit them with a gravitating story that like, holy shit, now I'm listening. What do you recommend, JD?
Yes, I think if you can figure out a way without it feeling too schmaltzy or too over-theatrical, if we could reorder it, that you actually begin with this story. Not, hi, my name is Mike, I'm glad to be, like, you actually begin with the story and say, I'm going to take you back to what happened to me 6 months ago, right outside the gym. You know, walked in, and this is the situation I dealt with, and then I found out, you know, and just like draw all of us into that one moment in time that you could be able to say, you know, now you didn't create your program because of this death. You already had the program going.
We hadn't launched it yet, but we were in the process.
You hadn't yet launched, so this gave you even more impetus to keep doing what you were doing.
Right.
When they launched, the kids were walking around with buttons of that kid.
Yeah. So being able to tell this story and say, you know, I knew what I was about to launch really was important and needed to happen in this community, in this neighborhood. All of this gave me that emphasis. Then I came to the Ignite program, and I was able to share this with other people and see that there's other people who are committed to the same goals that I am, and that this doesn't just need to be something that happens in one gym in one neighborhood, but has some possibility. Let me tell you about the team who's joined me in this. Now we've got a link from the story to the team that makes sense. And then with the team slide, I would not do, there was a little bit of Mickey Mouse Club. Hi, I'm Dan. Like, you know.
Mike pivoted towards me, and I'm like,
We didn't practice that.
Yeah. So what may be valuable here is for you to just introduce the team, you know, or if there is a value in each person, that you say something that's not on the slide, which I think was the conversation we had with you all as well, okay? The team that's doing Bambino, is that you know, they actually talk in their introduction which of them are parents and which of them are not. Like it directly ties to what they're doing. Other teams talk about, you know, how their experience has added value to this group. You don't want it to be too dreadfully long, but you do want to be sure that whatever you do here is stronger than the way you began the last time. And I think going from story into team and then into the presentation itself will work in that regard. One of the things I really like about this that I haven't seen in other teams is you've taken the time to have consistent photos that looks good in that regard. So you might lighten Patrick's up just a little bit, just with photo editor.
Random homeless dude that we found. Yeah.
But otherwise, I like there was a sense of cohesion in that regard. Okay.
Let it rip, JD. What else do you not like?
No, I'm what else did I like? You've been so mean to us. What else did I like?
I said not like.
I think the greatest challenge you have is making us understand this is because you are such a strong speaker and charismatic deliverer of the message. I don't want you to dial any of that down. I want you to be authentic. I want you to be who you are. But I think it's important that you really become the platform on which this story can get told in lots of other places and lots of other communities. And what you don't want it to be is that you are backup to Mike, and you see more integration of that with Mike's story. And the fact that you come up 2 or 3 times, I think is fine. It takes more rehearsal for that to happen. I think that's effective. But you want to be sure that you're also being able to add value to something that is so tied to him and his personality. Danny, was there a question or a thought there? I thought you had your hand up.
No.
Okay. So I think that and the if you get the consistency of the slides up, and at the same time that you do that, you bring the consistency of delivery and of connection up, I think that will move in that direction. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do in the last 5 minutes, I'm going to do the same thing I did with him, and just individually give you one piece to work on and one piece that's really going well. Mike, I've actually already given you part of it. The power of the story is awesome. You need to have stronger eye contact with individuals, particularly as you tell the story. Okay.
Looking at the ground.
Yeah. And what you do is when you don't remember what you're going to say, you look down for see if the words are down there for you.
Sometimes they are.
Yeah. Sometimes they are. Nicole, very poised. Like again, very strong sense of poise and everything. Have you memorized yours word for word? Is that what was going on?
It's a lack of practice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I have it written down, but I haven't gotten a chance to rehearse it as yet. So I was and then with all the feedback.
All the changes, yeah, there was so much that was going on there.
Yeah,
What I would urge, there was somebody I pointed out in the other group that was Danny, being very conversational. If you can move in the direction of being more conversational without losing that sense of poise. And I wrote down, I thought that you had word for word memorized it, and that was what was getting in your way. Now I understand it. Don't memorize it word for word.
No.
That always is a bad choice. Okay? Mike comes back up. In the second portion, when you watch the video, your movement is kind of like a caged animal. I felt like I was watching a leopard that was just up here, like, get me out of this damn cage. What you want to do is you want to have your movement be purposeful. And particularly where you've got 3 parts. I think it's boxing, personal branding, and scope of support. Yeah. But that's a very easy place where you can talk about, you do all of the boxing talk here and you stay in this space. And then you're able to say, not only do boxing, but let me tell you about what we do in terms of personal branding. And then you transition over, and everything here is about Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, that sort of thing. And then you're able to say, but it's not just those 2 pieces. We bring them together with the scope of support, and then you do that all from one place. Then your movement has a purpose rather than just getting you from one place to another. John, did you purposely put a Hamilton reference in?
No.
Have you seen Hamilton?
No.
Wow.
That was an accident.
The line from Hamilton, I'm seeing it tonight for the 3rd time.
I've seen it once.
Young, scrappy, and hungry is the line from the show. And you use young, scrappy, and something else. I was like, oh my God, he's channeling Hamilton. So
That's right.
That's exactly what he was going
That's a negative. Get this man a Tony.
Yeah.
Wasn't positive.
I wrote a lot down on yours, on both the plus and the delta. The 2 things that I thought were strongest, 3-part structure really works, and can you make that 3-part structure memorable for us? You told us there was 3 things you were going to talk about. Can you make those words crisp that we remember? They don't have to spell something. They don't have to all start with the same letter, but can you make that structure more memorable for us? And I think you did you tied nicely to past speakers, and I think you even foreshadowed where somebody else was going to speak in the future, and that again gives us that sense of being able to follow. And lots and lots of movement. You need to dial the movement down, just like I was talking about with Mike, and make it more purposeful. You made Vance work in the back of the room. He does these programs so that he doesn't have to work.
Where do you think he gets that from? Welcome, man.
Corey, great credibility, and the clarity of the ask was really, really good at that point. In fact, I thought we were ending at that moment, that the ask was so clear and there was some other stuff that was yet to come. I would work, but in some places you went into the level of detail about what's going to happen 2 or 3 degrees lower than we needed to go.
Okay.
So I was like, and then we're going to have 27 towels that will be stacked up. I was like, you got to a detail that was more than we needed, and too granular.
Got it.
Chad.
Yes, sir.
Great use of we
that is a thing many people struggle with, and you had really team ownership nicely of that. You also have just a beautiful, deep, resonant voice. Do you sing?
No.
Have you should. Like, you've got a very good command of your voice, and as you speak, it's very strong. Avoid turning your back completely to us. It's great if you come up and you touch a slide, but you want to be able to do it in a way that you're not having to turn your back fully to us. And then, Mike, final time. What we talked about earlier was the transition into the video, setting up the video, and then taking what I did with him a little bit on setting up Q&A. Okay? Any questions from the Ironbound team? Did I say that right? Ironbound. So what I would urge, and Nicole, I really appreciate the way you voiced what can be happening to you this morning, especially I think Brian and Nicole, the teams who go at the end, they're going a little bit of information overload, and they also have mentors today as well. So you now need to, first of all, take a little bit of break from this. Like, have a lunch that's not a working lunch. Do some stuff that lets you get some space. Then when you come back into this, you have to decide what of my feedback and of the mentor's feedback that you're going to take and act on. You probably need to act on Yossi's, okay? But it needs to be your presentation, it needs to be authentic for you, it needs to work for you. With both teams, you are in great shape for Friday before presenting next week, Wednesday and Thursday. You've all got some stuff that you need to work on, both on individual delivery skills and team cohesion and slides, but it is all going to come together. The process is working the way the Ignite team has created it, and it can be a little overwhelming at this point, but if you take some space, then you come back into it and you prioritize what you want to do the most, I think you will be in great shape when you present next week. If you run into questions, you're trying to read my handwriting, or you're trying to understand or remember something, feel free to ping me by email. I'm glad to get back and answer. I don't know if my schedule is going to allow me to see the presentations live, but hopefully I can make access to the videos if not.
But can we access our practice video?
I think they're going to hand you a jump drive as you walk out of the room.
When
So you can actually cut and make their jump drive now if you want to stop recording me.